Hello and welcome. My name is Chris from ChristopherHole.com. Welcome to episode 18 of the podcast, where we're going to be talking about 4 technique flaws to avoid. Now, a quick caveat on that. We are talking about in an exercise environment and more specifically in a weightlifting environment. When we are talking about dance, when we're talking about natural movement, if you want to call it that, if you want to put it under that umbrella, then the rules of movement begin to change. Now, I am specifically talking about the exercise environment and under heavy load, if you will, where we want to be maintaining proper technique so we minimize stress on certain areas of the body. We aren't going to prevent that stress, but we can certainly go a long way to minimizing the stress, which is going to allow the muscles and the other tissues to be able to do their job more effectively and more efficiently. Now, before we get into the 4 technique flaws to avoid, I quickly just want to mention my social channels, which is on Facebook, Christopher Hole Training. Please come along, like, follow, comment and share. Please do ask any questions that you might need answered, and I'll do my best to answer them. Also on Twitter, it's at Christopher Hole. It'd be great to have you there. Follow. Again, please comment, share. It'd be great to have you there. Alternatively, you can come to the website, which is christopherhole.com/online-training, which is where you can get set up on a bespoke online training program. So you might want to build core strength, you might want to overcome an injury, you might want to build your fitness or lose weight, whatever it might be, and we can do that on an online basis where I can send you programs on a monthly basis, and then you can obviously complete them and obviously build your fitness in your own environment. Alternatively, you can come to the other page on the site, which is christopherhole.com personal-training, and this is for people that live in and around the Bristol area who want to come and see me in the gym. Again, we work weight loss, fitness, core strength. We can overcome injuries. We would set you up on a program. You would meet me weekly in the gym, and we will work through that program, building your fitness that way. So please do just go to either of those pages, scroll to the bottom, fill out the contact form. That will come through to me. I'll be able to reply. We'll get you booked in for your consultation and assessment before we start the program. So back to the content and what we're talking about in this podcast. So it's 4 technique flaws to avoid. So number 1 is rounding of the spine. So when we are lifting a weight, be it off the floor, be it over our heads, be it lying on a bench, face down or face up, we want to be maintaining the proper position of the spine. So we want to avoid rounding of the spine. Rounding of the spine is an injury mechanism for disc herniation. Now, the heavier the load, the quicker the mechanism progresses. The lighter the load, the slower it progresses, but it still progresses. So we want to avoid exercises where we're rounding our spine. We want to be able to get the movement from the ball and socket joint. We want to be able to maintain proper integrity of the spine, which means building a rigidity and a stiffness and a robustness through the entire musculature of the core. So the abdominal wall, the lats at the back, the quadratus lumborum, either side of the spine. We want to be using those muscles correctly so we can then create the movement from the hips and from the shoulders, maintaining a proper position of the spine. That's how we transfer energy and force most effectively. So that's how we're going to lift more weight, and it's how we minimize our risk of injury. So it's a double-edged sword in that sense. Number 2 is the hip wink. Now, the hip wink or the hip tuck is very closely related to a rounded spine. But what we find is people that are maintaining a proper position of the upper back and the upper lumbar vertebrae might not necessarily be maintaining a proper position of the lumbar or lower lumbar vertebrae. So L4, L5 into S1. So what we're trying to do is maintain the proper position of the pelvis, which then will help us maintain a proper position of the core, which will do exactly as it did in rounding of the spine. It will minimize risk of injury, and it will improve the way your muscles are functioning and therefore improve fitness. So we want to be using the glute muscles to do their job, which is to extend at the hip. We want to be using the pecs to push the weight off us. We want to be using the rhomboids and the lats to pull the weight towards us. And we want to be using our core, i.e. the abdominal wall, the upper back musculature, to maintain the proper position of the spine, so we can transfer that energy and we can minimize that risk of injury. Number 3 is a valgus knee. Now, a valgus knee is where it falls inwards. So if we're doing a squat exercise or a deadlift exercise and our knee collapses inwards, that is for the knee what rounding of the back is for the spine. So I talked about the rounding of the spine and how that creates an injury. Well, that's what a valgus knee can do under load for the knee. So we want to be maintaining a proper position of the knee, which is done by using your hips correctly. So if you're using your hips correctly, your knee should stay towards the outside of your foot and it shouldn't fall in towards your toe. So what we want to be able to do is maintain that proper knee position, because the proper knee position shows the hips are working correctly, and if the hips are working correctly, we can start to use our spine correctly. So not only are these sort of individual things to be thinking about, they have a compound effect on each other as well, because if you can get one right, generally it will have a knock-on effect onto the other. Now, that's not to say that is 100% nailed on that that's going to happen, but there's a greater chance of it happening. If you can maintain a proper position of one of them, you can normally have a knock-on effect. So we want to avoid a valgus knee, which is the collapsing in of the knee. Now, this will have an effect on number 4, which is a collapsing arch of the foot. So if we can maintain a proper knee position, that will help us maintain a proper foot position. Now, also, if we maintain a proper foot position, that can help us with maintaining a proper knee position, which again can help us with maintaining a proper hip position, which can help us maintain a proper spine position. So all of these are links in a chain. So we want to be able to, all from the top down, maintain proper position of the spine, maintain proper position of the hips, proper position of the knee, proper position of the foot. But this also has a chain reaction on the way up as well. So when we are squatting, deadlifting, getting up from a seat, we want to be able to maintain proper position of the foot, because that's going to help us on the way up with proper position of the knee. So all of these positions, if you can imagine, or if you've ever heard of the saying, the straw that broke the camel's back, it just speeds up the wear and tear on joints. So if we're doing all of these 4 things, we're increasing the wear and tear on the joints. If we are minimizing the amount that we do these, we are minimizing the wear and tear on the joints. So we don't have to put as much emphasis on rehabilitation, we can put more emphasis on improving fitness, if that makes sense. So that's what all 4 of these are built towards. It's built towards minimizing risk of injury and maintaining or building that proper structure that we can improve our fitness on top of, if that makes sense. So all 4 of these, rounding of the spine, hip wink, valgus knee, and collapsing arch, they're all towards improving fitness and minimizing risk of injury. So hopefully that gives you a better idea of when you're moving around in everyday life, but also moving around in the gym and with heavy load, the 4 things that you want to be avoiding. So that brings me to a close. Thank you for listening. My name is Chris from ChristopherHole.com. I'll speak to you in the next episode.